Okay. Welcome, everyone. Hi, this is Chaula Vora. I am an internist and a hypertension specialist with Northeast Medical Group, associated with Greenwich Hospital, and my practice is in Coscob, Connecticut. So, this is the third time I'm talking about power of plant forward diet or plant based diet. And it always amazes me how much attention it garners because a lot of times, other speakers will tell me they have two people, five people, and we get so much signage for this particular topic. And I think it really is because finally the focus is catching up on this topic and how important it is for our lives. I always say that health is not absence of disease, it's presence of well-being, sense of well-being, feeling of fullness in life. And I think that's what is important. And so I'll go over this topic, and it is sort of divided into like two parts. The first part is talking about what are the studies on this, how does it help you? And then the second part is the practical tips and tricks as to how do you get involved or change over to the plant-based diet. Now, this whole new term is coming across. It used to be more plant-based, now it's plant-forward diet. And I think I kind of like it. It sounds a little bit more compassionate because this does not come from a place of like you need to quit meat, stop hurting the environment. While I think it is very important, I think it comes from a place of this is really good for you. Can we make some changes? While I don't expect people to just change overnight or stop everything, just incorporate more vegetables and plants-based diet in your routine life. So it comes from a place of that. I'm going to share the screen for my PowerPoint presentation, and at the end of it, we can do some few questions. So here we go. So, a patient comes to me and borderline blood pressure and borderline diabetes, say 7.2. What would I say? And the typical approach is medication, weight loss, and diet. But what sort of diet? What would really help or change life in long term? And I think one of the things we notice is a lot of times when you give a medication or prescribe something, patient thinks of it as, okay, I'm going to do it. But say I prescribe you a plant-based diet, would you do it every day? That is what's going to make a difference in long term. That is why I put the slide here, because it's almost like having a prescription of plant-based diet. What is it? What is plant forward or plant-based diet? It is to maximize the consumption of nutrient-dense plant foods while minimizing processed foods, oils, animal foods, including dairy products and eggs. And I'll go over some subtractions and additions that happens in this. It encourages essentially lots of vegetables, cooked or raw, fruits, beans, peas, lentils, soybeans, seeds, and nuts, of course, in smaller amount, and is generally low fat. Leading proponents in the field. Now, there are several, whether it's Dr. Ornish or Dr. Esseltyn from the Cardiovascular Prevention and Reversal Program at Cleveland Clinic. They are major proponents of plant-based diet, which actually can reverse some of the diseases, i.e., coronary artery disease and diabetes. Dr. Ornish would say, he would recommend allowing animal products such as egg whites or skim milk in small amounts versus some others would say not even soybeans and nuts, particularly if you have severe coronary artery disease. The way I look at it is take a middle road. You occasionally would have a touch of milk or a touch of milk in your coffee just once a day, or a nice freshly made home yogurt. I personally am a vegetarian, but I'm not vegan. My consumption of dairy is very low. I don't eat eggs, but in a little bit of amount or an occasional pizza, it's perfectly fine. Again, the way I look at it is middle road is always the best road. Now, this is an interesting slide because it just shows you how a human body was designed to be an herbivore, to be more plant eating. If you look at the differences in the anatomy of carnivore and herbivore, look at like the facial muscles. We have well-developed facial muscles, so we can only open so much versus, a carnivore can open and the can open the mouth really large and wide because they are devouring the prey. Jaw motion or the kind like the shape of our teeth, whether incisors, we have broad, flat. So it was not meant to tear and eat. It is more to chew. That's why our molars are flat. And stomach acidity is different in herbivore and carnivore, and we are more in matching with the herbivores. The length of small intestine is 3.6 times body length in carnivore. It is more than 10 times body length in an herbivore, and same with humans. And it's because it's a very complex process of breaking down the food first, the enzymes release, and then finally assimilation of nutrition and forwarding all the toxins and things that are not needed. Um, Colon for carnivores is simple, short, smooth, versus we have a long, complex colon, again, because we complete a lot of our digestive processes through the colon. And fibers are hard to digest, so it takes longer. And that is why, if you look at the anatomy, it really is designed for more plant consumption. Studies worldwide have shown that populations eating a plant-based low-fat diet have less risk of heart disease, less hypertension, that is high blood pressure, less risk of type 2 diabetes, few intestinal disorders, less incidence of certain cancers, less risk for osteoporosis, kidney stones, and gallstones, and reduced need for medications. Factors that reduce risk for heart disease. Why does plant-based diet help reducing heart disease? I think because there is reduced saturated fat and cholesterol intake, a high fiber and antioxidant intake. I can't tell you, I mean, it's like plethora of antioxidants, anti-inflammatory agents. Fiber being high in your system, think about it. Fruit, it has sugar in it, but it has fiber in it. So when you eat the fruit, the fiber slows down the sugar absorption. And because of that, the hormone called insulin goes up very slowly as well. The insulin is the cause of a lot of inflammation and certain discordance that happens in our body. So fiber intake is extremely important for that reason. And that's why if you have a juice directly from a box, just half a cup of juice is equal to 3 oranges. That's not a normal portion of orange. Versus if you eat a real orange with the fibers, it slowly releases the sugar, and the insulin surge is very slow. Lower heme ion intake and lower iron stores, lower blood pressure, decreased tendency to form unwanted blood clots, reduced blood viscosity. It makes the blood flow easily. And folate intake is high, which helps with substances like homocysteine. You might have seen some of the physicians might check your homocysteine level, especially if you have a high risk or strong family history of heart disease, especially in younger age. These are some of the studies that were published in American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. The heart benefits were possibly due to lower inflammation, oxidative stress, blood pressure, and reduced LDL levels. LDL is the bad cholesterol. When you do your lipid profile, you will see the LDL level. And that's the key marker which we use to see the risks you run for the heart disease. Analysis of 5 studies published in 1999, including 76,000 subjects, found rates of ischemic heart disease, which is the reduced blood supply and the blood clot resulting into heart disease, 34% lower in vegetarians than non-vegetarians. Not all plants are created equal, and I always say this because pizza is vegetarian, fries are vegetarian, but that's not what we are talking about when we say plant-based diet. Um, the study, which was from the Harvard Public School, included 200,000 women and men from the Nurses Health Study and the health professionals. They found that a diet rich in healthful plant foods is associated with substantially lower risk of developing heart disease, while a plant-based diet that emphasizes less healthful plant food is associated with increased risk. So again, burgers, pizzas, even a vegetarian burger, it is processed food. Um, so all of that, not really. But if you eat real vegetarian, then it has significant benefits to it. Those eating a nutritious plant-based diet while also being more physically active fare even better. In 2016 study, the researchers found similar results for the risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And that type 2 diabetes, again, it comes down to the insulin and the resulting inflammation. Lower oxidative stress and inflammation. I think inflammation is such a popular word now. Everybody understands that it's not just if it's red hot that something is inflamed. Your body has a lot of stressors, including stress. And apart from that, whether it's high blood pressure, it is diabetes, cholesterol, all of that adding to the stress and production of the inflammatory markers, which lead to this chronic health issues. Studies show that diet rich in whole plant foods such as fruits, vegetables, whole grains, nuts, tea, coffee, red wine in moderation, and olive oil decreases level of oxidative stress and inflammation, which are associated with the development of chronic disease. In the Adventist Health 2 study, a vegetarian diet was linked to lower CRP levels, a marker of inflammation. Again, that's another thing you would notice along with homocysteine, you would sometimes have the test for heart-specific CRP. And that is a marker, CRP is a marker for inflammation. The higher the number, you know that you have more inflammation. A lot of times I've actually had patients, I always say that, don't take my word for it. Try it yourself and see how you do with it. Like an experiment, like a scientist, and say, you know what, I'm going to try it for the next 3-4 months and see what happens. And it's incredible to see, the CRP levels, like if it's more than 3, it's dangerous, 1 to 3 is medium, and less than 1. And you will immediately see the change, like coming from more than 3 to like less than 1, or between 1 to 3. And, you just know then that this works. So experiment, flow with it. Just have an open mind and say, I'm going to try this and see how it goes. Lower risk of type 2 diabetes. Harvard review of 3 cohorts and updated meta-analysis, total of more than 442,000 subjects. Red meat linked with higher risk of type 2 diabetes, but one of the servings swapped with nuts every day decreased the risk by 21%, and substituting with whole grains reduced by 23%. EPIC study, BMI of fish eaters, vegetarians, and particularly vegans is lower than meat eaters. International Journal of Obesity, 2003. And consuming more fibers and low glycemic carbs is the key. Now, what is low glycemic foods? The foods that does not cause the insulin surge in response to your sugar intake very quickly. And what slows it down? The fibers. Fibers slows down that sugar surge, and hence the insulin surges in response to this. So it kind of counteracts it. So look at it. I mean, any fruit you eat, like whole, whether it's apple with the peel, that's all fibers. It's packed with fibers. That's how nature created it. EPIC study, cohort with 520,000 people in 10 European countries, more closely adhered to plant-based diet, longer lifespan. Diets that include more whole plant foods are linked with longer lifespan. That was another study in American Journal of Clinical Nutrition around 2009. So clearly it has benefits with longevity. Here's the thing. Instead of focusing on just adding, years to life, it's also important to add life to years. And that's where the sense of well-being comes, and eating wholesome foods and, nutritious food and tasty and flavorful food comes into play. Vegetarians, lower risk of cancers. Vegetarians, 12% lower overall rate of cancer. Plant foods linked with protection against mouth, pharynx, esophagus, stomach, lung, pancreas, and prostate cancer. In particular, high fiber plant foods may protect in digestive cancers. Um, I've seen much lower cases of colon cancers in India, I think just partly because the diet is so predominantly plant forward. A study linked plant-based diet to 20% lower breast cancer risk. Um, and it is likely that various phytochemicals in fruits and vegetables work together to lower cancer risk. Some help regulate hormones such as estrogen. Others slow cancer cell growth or block inflammation. Many lower the risk of damage caused by oxidants such as tobacco or ozone. So the foods we eat have so much more implication than just just the satiety or a satisfaction of hunger or growth or sustenance. I think it is much more protective in nature. Um, this is becoming such a hot topic, and there are so many incredible people working on this. Is about healthy gut and the immune system, and more people are proposing more plant-based diet. It's almost like when you eat foods which are real and you know ability to break down and fungate. It's almost like when you eat fiber rich food, you will also notice some gurgling and some gas. And partly it is because it's providing almost like a manure for your gut flora to flourish. It's like, giving fertilizer to your garden, and the gut flora just flourishes on that. So when you give food that is not processed and which has a lot of fibers, the gut flora really flourishes. It's almost called prebiotic. So some of these vegetables like asparagus or even sweet potatoes, some of these vegetables, actually most of the vegetables, greens, they provide great environment for the gut flora to flourish. And the gut flora is what actually gives you immunity. There not only immunity, even serotonin. We call it gut feeling. Why is that? Because we used to think that a lot of our moods and anxieties and depression is related to serotonin in brain, but I think newer studies are showing that there is also serotonin in your gut, and your gut is the main center for this. So having a good plant-based diet also gives you great satiety. You feel the sense of fullness. You may not be hungry for hours together because that fiber keeps you really full. And on top of that, the gut flora is really flourishing. You will start noticing difference in, not only your gut motility and your regularity with the bowels and stuff. You'll also see difference in your skin, your hair, the way it shines. It's just incredible how simple changes makes a huge difference. EPIC study showed lower rate of hospital admissions and risk of death from diverticular disease among vegetarians. Again, it's coming down to fibers. Brain protection. Chronic inflammation and oxidative stress lead to development of Alzheimer's, dementia. High adherence to Mediterranean plant-based diet linked with 48% lower risk of Alzheimer's. This is from Archives of Neurology in 2009. And again, I think that, whether it's Mediterranean diet or any ethnic diets or old cultures and old civilizations also used to use a lot of herbs and spices, which not only flavors the food, but I think they work as a really powerful antioxidant, as they talk about, and reduce and counter the oxidative stresses to help you with memory loss and dementia kind of illnesses or other neurologic issues. So I think there has been studies, but it's important to look at a whole wider, broader picture of also considering spice as an important part of this. Famous vegetarians. And I like to put this slide, and I mean, look at these guys, whether they are incredible artists or, the spiritual leaders or scientists like Albert Einstein or Thomas Edison, thought leaders like Mahatma Gandhi or the art, musicians like, George Harrison, Paul McCartney. I mean, these guys were all vegetarians. And the reason why I put this slide here is to show that this is not a fad or a fashion or, polarized politics, or whether I believe in climate change. It's none of that. It's plainly humanitarian. And having been doing this healthcare for 15 years now, it's purely and purely for my patient's well-being. So this idea that, oh, it's the new thing, vegetarianism is not a new thing. It's always been there, and it's practiced in a lot of different cultures. Okay, I think this is the part I really, really enjoy talking about. So till now, I showed or talked about, you know, what are the studies about, plant-based diet, um, and you got the idea about high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes, keeping the weight down, um, digestive diseases, cancers, neurologic issues, dementia, all the big things. Um, but the truth is, somebody who has grown up in with a certain in a certain culture, in a certain way, how do you transition to plant forward diet? And by that, I don't mean you just completely give up meat. If you can, that is wonderful. Um, but if you cannot, at least getting more plants in your diet is, I think, very imperative. So first is read. Don't take anybody's word on it. Drop any preconceived ideas, notions, anything about this topic, and just read. What's the material out there saying? What's the data saying? What are the and look at different perspectives, and find your own path, your own middle way. Um, Also find what works for your body. Some people do need some amount of meat. Well, nothing against it, but please do include more vegetarian or more vegetables in the diet. Research recipes. Whenever you start something, I think that you have to have a good plan. So I'll give you an example. I've grown up vegetarian, but I was trying to figure out what should I eat in the office. Like, I barely have 15 minutes of lunch. What should I eat that should be fresh, that should be nutritious, and it is easy to make? So I thought about it, I researched it, and there are some incredible bloggers out there. And I think some of my favorite ones is Cookie and Kate. So Kate is this lady, and her dog Cookie. And she has several vegetarian, vegan recipes on her website. And she's also on social media, Instagram and Facebook. I'm not sure about Facebook, but definitely Instagram. And other ones I think are Love and Lemons or Naturally Ella. Like, these are just places you start. You will have your own journey. You'll have people you like, you vibe with. But what I found from her, I always thought that I didn't like my salads. Like the store-bought salads, or they are, for some reason, they tasted better. And they're expensive, and I can't really run out to get lunch every day because I really have flat 15 minutes. So I looked up her recipes, and initially I followed it. And then I started creating my own variations of it. And one of the best things I learned to do is make my own dressing. And that has completely changed it. So today I had a low carb flex whole grain pita, and I put some arugula pesto on it, and I made a salad which I pre do it, like I do it on Sunday. I'd made with roasted broccoli, pumpkin seeds, roasted peppers, and sun-dried tomatoes, some chickpeas, and I made a dressing from like garlic, yogurt, um, olive oil, fresh lemon, and some cayenne because I like it a little bit hot, and the kick of black pepper, freshly ground. I just doused with it because I had some also watercress is in season, so I put a bunch of that, wrapped it, and I had, and I'll tell you, it's like a festival in celebration in your mouth. It takes me 5 minutes because those things are always there. I prepped it on Sunday, and I had to research it because I wanted to eat some more green and raw stuff during the daytime, because in the evenings I tend to eat cooked Indian meals like vegetarian stuff with whole grains and stuff. So this really, it's like, it's so satisfying. And, all those flavors just bursting, it's fresh, it's real. And it gives you such a burst of energy in, when I'm running from one patient to another. So the point is, it's the simplicity, and you come up research recipes, and you come up with such ideas, and then you create your own. It's almost like having a blank canvas, and you just use the paint of your imagination on it and create recipes with it. um, Another thing I'll tell you, a good tip is, like arugula. Arugula is very good for you. It's very powerful antioxidant. The thing is, it comes in a big bag, and it gets bad like in a day or two. It starts wilting and losing the oomph. So what I come up with is, I make arugula pesto. So with arugula, walnut, olive oil, garlic. I like green chili in it, but you can avoid it. Salt and black pepper. Sometimes I put a dash of cumin, roasted cumin in it. It's one of those ingredients which will make you go, what's that? It just adds that little oomph to it. I do not do cheese in this. And I make like small batches and put it in deep freezer. So I don't waste it. Because, you buy this whole big thing, and, food wastage is a whole different topic. And I feel very passionate, passionately about it. So I'm going to talk for it just for 1 minute. I mean, the amount of food a big metropolis like New York wastes can feed, like, at least 1/3 of Africa. So we don't want to do that. So I think coming up with things like that, and also it makes your life so much easier when it's in small batches. It's always in my refrigerator here. My pitas are here. So all I need to do is bring my salad from home. I dump it, wrap it, and there you go. So, you come up with things. So it was a necessity. I thought of it, I researched it, and then I executed. And you just be creative about it. And I think kale also makes great hearty salads, and you can pre-make it, and it remains quite good. Um, Meal planning, I think, that's another a big thing. I think if you want to eat well, a meal planning really is vital. Um, you can plan the whole menu ahead for the week. That's what I do. I am a weekend warrior, and I cook like several meals over the weekend, so that when I go from work, I can work out and I'm not stressing about the food or having that excuse that I still need to cook, and I have something ready to go. And that would also prevent me from eating something that's not worthy. Try recipe once a week. When you're starting out, like, start with simple stuff like one pot meals. Think bean, grain, vegetable. That's a good way to start. Because another thing is, like, if you choose, think about, like, again, old cultures, ethnic cultures would have beans and rice. Why is that? Because the essential amino acids, the protein blocks, which are missing in beans, is provided by the rice. So when you eat both together, you're getting a complete protein. Add some vegetables to it, and you get the whole, um, you know, meal out of it. So you practice with that. Start with that kind of a theme in your head, and say, okay, these are the three things, and what combinations, permutation combination of spices and themes you are going to use. You can use Mediterranean, you can use Ethiopian, Indian, Latin American, Spanish influences, Italian, different influences, different spices, and work around that. Substitution to meat alternatives to start. I think it's a great way to start. I don't think that's something I would recommend persisting, but when you're starting out, it's a good way to start. Like, whether it's beyond, what is it called? Is the meat substitute burgers, Boca burgers, or one of those burgers which has become more popular now. You can even make your own, but it's okay to start with this. Actually, somebody I know, she makes meatballs. And if you look at the ingredients, they are like freshly made. So mustard greens, mango, fresh turmeric, and red kidney beans. And I'm telling you, I can have that just by itself and not need to put in anything else. It's just so flavorful. And if you put that on anything, and I have a very sophisticated palate. I grew up with a lot of spices, and it discriminates very quickly in my mouth as to what flavors are we talking. And I can see that spark of turmeric. You don't need to take turmeric pills. I think this is how it is meant to be eaten. So I think one of the problems is because something is good doesn't mean we take it in supra therapeutic doses. It was designed to be eaten as a spice. So you just put a pinch in your food and it feeds like 3 4 people, but that's something you do consistently your entire life, and that's what's going to make a difference. I think when we do it in extreme amounts, like, I had a patient whose liver enzymes shot like unbelievable, and I'm thinking, what's going on? They don't drink. Come to find out, it was cinnamon. Because cinnamon is good, the individual was taking large amounts with the oatmeal in the morning, and I think that doesn't work. It doesn't work that way. It has to be eaten as a spice. And for some reason, I think when you cook those things, it changes its properties and it's much more easy to assimilate in your body. And also it's tolerated better. I think that's another thing. A lot of people tell me that, oh, I don't tolerate spices. I think that's partly it is, if you have it in more raw form, you won't. But if it is as a touch, whether it's in your chili or something, you will adapt to it very nicely. um, Start with elimination of red meat. Start with one thing, like, okay, I will give up red meat. I'll still be doing fish and chicken, um, because red meat was probably one of the biggest culprits. So start with elimination of one particular food. Start the day right. Go veggie at breakfast. Now I say that, but I think you can choose. Like for me, it was lunch. Okay, lunch is a problem. I don't have time. I don't have my gadgets here. So what am I going to do? So you figure out what is your weak link. Um, it might be easier for you to get salad at work if you have a cafeteria or other vegetarian options, but dinner is a problem. Or my tendo Achilles is that you know that bagel with cream cheese in the morning. So I need to change that. So you look up and you will see so many different ideas. Some people do chia pudding. Some people don't like the texture of it. That's fine. Then we do eggs with vegetables or oatmeal. So it needs some sort of creativity and also what you like. Like I'm a savory person in the morning. I don't like sweet. So chia pudding will not work for me. So it really comes down to that as to what suits your taste and your lifestyle. Join the Meatless Monday bandwagon. It says Monday, but you can choose really. It should not look like in a penance or a punishment. Choose one day a week, which is easy for you to plan, and say that that's going to be my vegetarian day or my plant-based day, and um, plan ahead. You start with 1 days, 2 days. I had a patient whose LDL was 180, and she went on plant-based diet twice a week. And 6 months later, it was down to 120. Now that's a significant difference just with food. So it was so exciting, and the joy on her face. She told me, Dr. Vora, can I come to one of your lectures and tell them how well it worked? So, but with this Zoom thing, it's a whole different ballgame. That energy of being with people in the room is missing. In fact, this is the third time I'm doing. I think I mentioned that. And last time the feedback I got was we should do an actual culinary session. So we were originally going to do it in the kitchen in Greenwich, and come and share how to do the recipes, give introduction of different spices, how they help. And Bridget Foscante, who's the coordinator of all this, was going to help me with that. And I was so excited about it. I was going to really do it, but oh well, we'll settle with this for now. So next thing is shop for plants first. Instead of planning your menu around meat, plan it around plants. So, meat can be a side instead of vegetable as a side. Meat can be a side, and make vegetables as your star meal. Um, One of the things to do, everybody goes differently. Like you can also do it, go to farmers market and, see what's the seasonal fresh products available, bring it, and then research the recipes. You can go other way too, or, I kind of ask what my taste buds want, and I'll say, I feel like Mexican this week, then I'll create more that kind of flavors for myself, or else I'm craving eggplant, then I'll do eggplants. So you can do it that way or the other way around, but it helps you in two ways. First is, of course, the meal planning, and secondly, it prevents the waste, because you know that this is what I'm going to do. You're only going to get that exact ingredients. So that really helps. Another humble request is, you may not like a vegetable you have tried once, um, or you're like, I'm not too hot for eggplant. And I've experienced this many times with friends, and I will take them to a different restaurant, and they'll try this. I'm like, oh, you know what? Thank you for pushing me. This is great. Now they become a convert. So don't give up. Try different recipes, and you will realize that when it is made right, anything seasoned right, made with right techniques, it always shines. And some of it are cultivated tastes. Like, I don't expect you to start liking bitter gourd overnight. But once you cultivate the taste for it, I call myself a self-professed veggie addict. It is so yummy, and so filling. And every day is like a feast. It's not something like, a little bit in the night. It's like a feast. And I often say I eat like a queen. So with, full different variations with lentils and vegetables and whole grains. If you eat meat, use it as a seasoning. So cut down on animal food intake while pushing plants by using meats as flavoring in dishes instead of main events. So if you're making a pasta sauce with beef, or any other kind of meat, you can make it predominantly, vegetarian based, and you can add some pieces of meat in it just because it gives you that texture. But after a while, if it is flavored well and balanced well, the acidity of tomatoes with a bit of, roasted red pepper, which gives that charred flavor to it, and a touch of carrots, which will give that natural sweetness. It'll balance that thing. It makes it hearty, and it gives a great texture. Eat meat, add meat to it for just the flavor of it, but you don't need to make the whole sauce with it. That's how you're going to cut it down. Or chili, with a little bit of meat in it, but it's predominantly with beans and lots of vegetables. Um, Create a plant-based pantry list. And I think most of these beans or whole grains have great shelf-stable, convenient shelf life. They're extremely economical and convenient. Like a 4 lb bag would be like, $2.99 or $3, and it lasts you for several meals. I when the COVID pandemic hit, we were so caught up with just like, what's going on, just figuring out, how to handle this, the volume, and what are we going to do about this, and the fears and the PPE and all that stuff. I was not fast enough to get to the grocery stores and grab things, but I always knew that my pantry is full with a lot of this nutrient dense products. So it gives you that peace of mind, and you're not making as many um, trips to the grocery. So it really works great. Get cooking. I think that ready-made foods, look, we all need that help, and I would be happy, and I always do support the local economy, and what you want to support restaurants and stuff. But cooking is joy. I think it also gives you an idea of, it's also a sense of control of what's going on in your mouth, um, what it includes, and creativity. I think it's bonding. uh, I remember growing up in India, my mom and I would cook for 40 people, um, and multi-course meals, like two appetizers, and 3-4 different entrees, the bread, the rice, and the dessert. And we don't have, like, it's very hot and humid, and we don't have like deep freezers and stuff to make it ahead of time. So you really have to make it fresh that morning. And since I was very young, I would be involved with the cooking with mom, and those are some of the best memories I cherish. And also the skill, which you the set skill sets that was given, it's just very powerful. And it's almost like a tango. Mom does something and I'll finish it, or I'll start and she will take over. And there's not a word that passes, or any confusion, or this whole thing about too many cooks spoil the broth. No, it's about a fine dance. And the skill she gave me, I think that's just so important, and it's such makes for such great memories. So cooking together as a family and involving the family in it. And another thing is, once you change, once person changes, it's like the torch of revolution passes on. Think about it, when we make our um, Thanksgiving recipes. They go generations to generations. Now, say you came up with some plant-based recipe which your family really loves, then it'll become part of their repertoire, and it becomes part of their growing up and memories. And food is very powerful. It's not just, it carries a lot of different connotations to it. So cooking together, I think it's great joy, it's creative, and it's a great skill to pass on. um, this is what, just the diagram of what different things could look like whole grains like millet, quinoa, barley, rice, whole wheat, oats, legumes. A lot of times people think it's just chickpeas or kidney beans. I'll tell you, there are so many kind of different lentils, tubers, sweet potatoes, yams, carrots, beets, uh, greens, corns, collards, peppers, and of course fruits. Now, just a caution with fruits. They say usual typical thing is 5 to 6 servings of vegetables or and fruits a day, but fruit is really only one. So if you have a big bowl of even though it's good for you, like watermelon, it has very high glycemic index, meaning the sugar surge would be very quick, and hence the insulin response would be very quick. And when the insulin goes up too high, you'll feel suddenly shaky and jittery. So your sugars go up and down like a yo-yo. So you want to keep it in small amounts, like half a cup of berries, or half a banana, or small apple, one pear. um, so like fruit juice with several fruits, and especially if you're like going to take the fibers out, are probably not the best thing. So uh, f- frozen fruits and vegetables, oh my gosh, I tell you, I can't live without that, because you have to get help. Life is busy, you don't always have time to you know get fresh vegetables, and it needs a lot of prepping and cleaning and things like that. So it's perfectly okay to get help from frozen vegetables and fruits. I get this stir fried mix from Trader Joe's, and coconut milk. I make this fresh Thai based paste, and I have that in freezer. So I put that in. I put it in my Instapot, and within 2 minutes, oh, and I add tofu to it. There's this big pot of this fresh, fragrant Thai curry. And it could last you for a whole week for lunch. And it is packed with all sorts of different vegetables. So I use that and put it in. Like the broccoli salad, which I brought in today, it was frozen. So I roasted it and then brought in. It increases the shelf life. It's pre-made. It remains good for the whole week, and it's easy to handle. Another thing, coming just talking about vegetables, some of my patients say that they don't tolerate it. And one of the key things is, some of the vegetables should not be eaten raw. Like, if we, like a lot of times we use cauliflower and crudités, that those are very hard to digest. So cauliflower, or even cabbage, um, it's best when it's slightly cooked. And there are different techniques of cooking, whether it is sauteing gently, or you shutting the, you uh, cover the pot or the pan, whatever you're using, so that the nutrients remain in it, or flash frying, like in Chinese food. Um, I think they say that sauteing it and closing it and letting it simmer in its own juices is probably the better ways, because it retains its nutrition. Um, so cooking it really helps digesting the foods much faster. See, the thing is, we developed agriculture, and we found fire as human race evolved. So you're used to cooking, really makes it so much faster to disintegrate, to break down, and move it further. So I think if you can't tolerate raw veggies, I think that's a great way to incorporate vegetables in your diet. Beans, I think that's another issue of bloating or a lot of gas. The key thing with beans or lentils, or for that matter, is soaking it. Um, Typically, in a lot of households, what they'll do is when you wake up, the first thing you do is soak the lentils, um, because you're going to cook around noon. Um, Give it at least 4 or 5 hours of good soaking. Sometimes I soak it at night when I'm going to bed, because then I'll make something in the morning if I'm planning to cook that day. And then after it's soaked for all night, you wash it thoroughly for 2 3 times. Not only it would cook very fast, but it is much easy to digest, because some of the indigestible sugars on top, they break down, and those are the ones that causes gas and that weird feeling. Also start slow, like, if you're not somebody who has had beans and other lentils and stuff on a regular basis, start small amounts. Once your body gets acclimatized to it, you will do really well with it. You will start liking it. Another thing is spices. I think there is like oregano group of spices. um, there are oregano seeds, and I think in Mexican cooking they use epazote. So when I had gone to New Mexico, I took a class for making the famous het chilies. They make the red and the green sauces out of it. The chef and I started talking, and he was interested because I came from a different culture and had some culinary interest. So we were exchanging thoughts, and we realized that his grandma would put epazote, it's one of the Mexican spice. I think I'm saying it right, not sure, in the beans, and he says, well, that makes you digest well. So he made me taste it, and it's exactly oregano seeds which we use in Indian cooking. Just a tad bit of it before you saute would make sure that it's easy. The lentils are easy to digest, and they won't give you that much gas. Even cumin, coriander, all of those spices would also help you with the digestion of the lentils. Local farmers market for good deals or produces. A lot of times I hear complain that it's expensive to eat vegetarian. I think if we buy ready-made stuff, probably the cost is in making. But if you make it yourself, I think it's much more affordable. Um, and it also helps the local economy and the farmers and the whole field of agriculture, and hence supporting the environment, and preventing the green gases, and uh, our saving our mother earth. But that's besides the point. I think it just tastes great. um, Try some ethnic recipes which have use of different vegetables. They're like okra may not be something that you have had. um, my Italian American sister-in-law, she grew up, her grandmother used to make a gumbo, and she hated it. She says, oh my gosh, this is so slimy. But when we make it crisp, and with a touch of a chickpea flour or the rice flour, which would make it really crisp, and then you toast it, you can eat it like this. But with flavorings and stuff, it completely changes the taste of it. So try some different recipes. You know, I always say share food. Like with COVID, it's hard to entertain. So I wouldn't have friends over because, you don't want to share. But what I would have done sometimes is friends who are interested, if I've made something, I would drop it at their house and then text and say, hey, open your door and there's something outside. And the reason is that kind of introduces them without having to stress about trying a new ingredient. And if they like it, they'll text me and say, hey, what was it? That was fantastic. Give me the recipe. Or sometimes this friend of mine, she will text me, oh, look, this is what I made, a picture of, what they made. And if it sounds interesting, she'll send me a link of some, that's how I found Cookie and Kate. Um, and she would send me a link of that recipe, and I look it up and say, you know what, I could change it this way or that way, or this works better for me, or this I have in the house right now or available or whatever. And it works so wonderful, because then there's an exchange of it too. um, and he has taken to Indian cooking, so he sent me a picture and said, this dal didn't come out right. What did I do wrong? And I said, well, with this particular dal, it has to be soaked longer. Yogurt and garlic are the great combinations with it. So now you learn, and you evolve into this whole different cuisine. So for me, it is different. I like whether it is Ethiopian cuisine or, Italian, comes from Grandma Vero, so that I got a lot of recipes from her. But you just bring those different influences in your life. Um, get to know different spices and use it creatively. I think one of the important things to do is don't be afraid of spices. Spices doesn't mean heat. Spices just means flavor. And there are so many different varieties to it. Even sumac, like that nice rose pink kind of a red kind of a I think it's a Mediterranean spice, in some of the salads. My gosh, it looks great. Or on top of hummus, it kicks it up a notch. Um, and those kind of things. So just bring in zatar, which is another Mediterranean spice with like oregano and stuff, parsley, I think, and it also has roasted sesame seeds. So those are all spices, and all these things have such powerful anti-inflammatory, antioxidant properties that you don't even need to go and have pills for that. And enjoyment is a whole different ball game. Keep it simple. Not every meal has to involve cookbooks, cutting boards. It can be easy as like black bean burritos or chili or hummus, or like the sandwich I made, or the arugula, pesto I made, which makes it for a quick fix. Um, convert your favorite dishes. As I said, if it's meat based, you can turn it into more predominantly vegetarian one. Dust of gadgets. I would love to know what gadgets you guys like, but one of my favorites is Instapot, because it's quick, like Thai curry in 3 minutes. Frozen things, put it all in together, some spices, close it. 2 minutes, I have this piping hot curry, Thai curry, ready to go. Um, rice or quinoa. I make quinoa with lentils with different spices and a big batch, and then it'll last you again for a few days. So, um, you know, I love that. My another favorite gadget is cast iron pan. I pretty much have moved away from any non-stick stuff. I think there's just, there's questions about carcinogenic, products from the Teflon and things like that. So, except for one of the crepes I make, that thing just sticks to everything I have tried. So that's the only thing I use non-stick for. But otherwise, cast iron pan, it gives you nice char. Plus, it's cast iron, it's iron. That's how our grandmothers made. And the vitamin C, the acidity in whether it's tomatoes or lemon that you squeeze on it, really helps you absorb that iron. So there's more thought to it than just a machine. I also love air fryer. I'll have to say, you know, I'm not against good fats in right amount, but man, air fryer is just, like you make kebabs. So, I would marinate with yogurt and different spices with like vegetables. I'll put it in a skewer, put it in air fryer for like 5 minutes, roasted, nice, yum. And it also cooking, I'll take help from it. If I think that this is going to take long to cook, I'll put it first in the air fryer so it kind of dehydrates, and then cook it in cast iron pan so it really crisps and cooks much faster. So while something is going on the one of the burners for one thing, this is going on in air fryer, and Instapot is on. So within 2 hours, I have like 4 or 5 dishes ready to go. So um, bringing out those kind of things are really great. I mean, even uh, slow cooker. I think that is another wonderful thing. You put things in and walk away and dial in, and lo behold, in few hours later, you will get stuff ready to go. I think I'm in instant generation, so that's why I'm about Instapot. I don't get anything from them, but just saying, I'm just a fan. um, Easy chopping, dicing. I think there are gadgets for that too. You know, it doesn't have to be perfect. I mean, if you are, if you really enjoy it, and I would love to do like knife skills classes. I think there's one in New York's culinary school, and they do this like weekend 2 hour thing on cutting and chopping. I would love to take that. I think that it just hasn't happened yet. But that would be something fun to do, and I think do it with a couple of girlfriends or as family or friends. It's just great skill to have. Makes your life so much easier. You can even do cutting, dicing, chopping, ready to go, and put it in like nice baggies in your freezer. So all it needs is dumping into whatever gadget you're using. Um, so I talked about 10 ways to make meatless meals more flavorful. Spices, spices, spices. Buy fresh. I think fresh vegetables, but don't hesitate to get frozen too, because a lot of times they're fresh, they're immediately packed, and you will get it. Um, Build a strong foundation. I think any dish you make, as if you just using good amount of, like, whether it's garlic or onions or peppers, bring those flavors, saute them nicely, let them all marry together, and you will know as time goes by as to, some dishes would require a quick cooking of onions. You don't want it to brown and caramelize because that'll make it sweet, but you want that nice crunch in it. Then you wait for it. um, Add salt as you go. You don't want to start right away, because then it will go small amount and now you get it salty. So try it, see how it is, and then adjust it accordingly. Discover the world of sauces. I think that's another great trick. um, you can make big batches of whatever sauce you like, and you can deep freeze it in like cubes, and whenever you need, you take 2 cubes. Say suppose you're making soup, you take the 2 cubes, which is like celery, onion, garlic, and tomatoes, like a basic base, if that's what you like. You can even get those chopped ones in like grocery stores, so you're not even cooking. Some of them have carrots in it. Throw in together, saute it, crush it or grind it, make small cubes out of it, put it in a baggie in a freezer. When you need it, you take 2 out, boom, done. So that kind of planning really helps, and different flavors, different sauces from different cultures. It's incredible because it keeps things different and gives you variety, which is a lot of fun. Add umami for richness. I think Japanese have really refined the art of eating, that subtle flavors which go on. And I think that's what really herbs and spices are, a tad bit of cilantro, or ending with that little chop of rosemary, or a sprig of, parsley, and just a little bit, and it just changes the whole flavor of the dish. So, like you're making a fresh lemon drink, a lemonade, with a little bit of cumin and different few other spices, and you put a sprig of mint in it. My gosh, it tastes so flavorful. It's like you're in a spa. You're not, but that's it feels great. Um, Go for the crunch, like in the sense that you can even use like snacks which are, whether it's carrots or celery and things like that, which would really add crisp. I've taken to making, I was trying to include more flex in my diet, and the flex crackers. And that's another whole fun thing, because I figured out the basic recipe, and it is like flex meal, like that is already ground, and water, and I put some psyllium husk because it increases the fibers and it also helps it bind nicely. And you bake it for 25 minutes. Oh, I went crazy on that. I started with rosemary, then I started with or I did another time with Mediterranean za'atar spices, the other time in an Indian way. And I'm having so much fun with it. And just 2, 3, 4 crackers a day, like, you want that crunchy. Um, and it really is packed with nutrients. It's good fats, because fats you don't want to abscond. It's just matter of, or abundant. You just want to have good fats. And flax, chia seeds, um, those are good fats. Um, and chia, again, I think you either love it or hate it. I will be honest, I did not know how to make it. So I would keep on saying mine never swells. And again, that fixated mindset. And a friend of mine said, no, this is the proportion. And she made it right in front of me. And my God, my life changed. So now I create all sorts of different quinoa with yogurt. And to an extent that it is one of the most requested recipes from people. If I'm going, they'll say, hey, do you mind making that for me? I'm like, yeah, well, so I'll have to keep, like good Greek yogurt and chia. I always have a big bottle, and I'll make it quickly with all the seasonings and garnishes and stuff. You can even make it with fruit. I like it savory, so that's just me. Um, but the tartness of yogurt, that creaminess, and then chia, and then some spices, which just it's just different textures in your mouth. Um, and it was so much fun to create it or come up with it. So something like that would, it includes good fats. It includes new stuff which I was not used to. I didn't grow up with it, but I know that it's good for you. So that's how you will incorporate it. Make fat your friend. It's good fats are always welcome, avocado or guacamole. But not only that, sesame seeds, good small amount of nuts like walnuts are great. In pesto would be great way to get it in, or handful. It should not be more than that, just a handful of walnuts. Anything good, but when we overdo it, whether it's spices or turmeric or any of that stuff, it's not good. It has to be in the middle of the road. Don't forget the protein. I think one of the commonest questions I get is, what about the proteins? Vegetarians can be deficient in proteins. And I think if you eat a well balanced diet, a vegetarian that is truly whole grain, plant forward, vegetable based vegetarian, you will have enough protein in your diet. Now, think about it this way. How do we measure strength or power? Horsepower, right? We'll say this device or this generator is so and so horsepower. Now, if we use horse to compare it with the power and strength, just to let you know, horse is a vegetarian. Elephant, who can lift things and who's this huge muscular thing, large thing, is a vegetarian. I think every body is created in a unique way. And if we focus and if we pay attention to a well balanced meal, you will find everything in nature. So, no reason to just obsess over, oh my God, I need to have my protein. If you think about it, the animals don't look at the food and say, oh, this is carb, this is fat, this is good carb, bad carb, or this is protein. They just eat it. Availability, pleasure, what works for your body. And I think finding that good relationship with food and not seeing it as a punishment, but as a, oh my God, what a great opportunity I have. And we are humans. We don't have to, necessarily kill and survive. We have agriculture, we have stores, we can go buy, experiment. We have that ability and a big cerebrum to research and interact and make it a whole community experience. So I think it's exciting to try this. Michael Pollan in Defense of Food, I think that was one of the very good books. He says just three things. Eat food. When he says eat food, he means real food, something that's not processed, that doesn't come in, packed, pre-made. This is real food, which would break down and uh, disintegrate in your system, in your intestine, and it is live food, so it will also produce different gases and stuff. Now, just a quick side thing: if you make yogurt at home, and if you have ever made it, if you keep it outside, it'll turn a little bit sour. That means those bacteria are live and kicking. If you get the store bought ones, it hardly tastes tart. I mean, it tastes completely different. Try it. It will not be as thick and like a solid thing. It will be slightly watery, but it'll be nice and tart, which tells you that the bacteria is really live and alive. So that's just gives you an idea what real food or eating real food is. Not too much. I think uh, that's true for any diets you follow. It has to be the middle path and mostly plants. So these just says these three things. Um, if people just did four simple things, and it's not simple but doable: not smoking, exercising half hour a day, eating a diet that emphasizes whole plant foods, and not becoming obese, that may prevent most cases of diabetes and heart attacks, half of the strokes, and a third of cancers. Even modest changes may be more effective in reducing cardiovascular disease, heart failure, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and all cause mortality than almost any other medical intervention. It is simple and it's doable and it is fun. And it's thing people can do as a community. And just the fact that so many people attend these talks over and over, I think it gives me an idea that um, this is becoming finally very popular and taking the center stage as it deserves. So if you have any questions, I'll be happy to answer, and we can go from there. All right, so I'm going to say, look at the questions I have. Okay, so Noni, I went full plant forward in January, and my world completely opened up. I've tried so many wonderful recipes from so many cultures. It does take some planning. My question is, my husband's cholesterol was lower at his last visit. Is it possible that after only 3 months could have made a noticeable difference? Also, people like desserts, and I find that it is very easy to find delicious vegan cake ideas, switching out coconut and olive oils, applesauce instead of eggs. It really is amazing. So this is more of a comment than a question, and congratulations. How wonderful. I mean, I can only imagine your husband going into the office, and if the doctor's like me, my eyes like light up and I get so excited. I even call cholesterol gorgeous and blood pressure beautiful, but that's what it is. It's just so wonderful. And it can make a difference. 3 months, or yes, absolutely. Why not? And you're right about the desserts. Being like vegan cakes and stuff, but there are also a lot of other desserts you can make from different things. It doesn't even have to be in a cake form. But you're right. I mean, we are in a time where there are even home deliveries, which are, even pre-made stuff or pre-measured stuff that comes as vegetarians, and it's amazing. Then Kamal Browning, your thoughts on canned beans? Um, I prefer to soak it and make it from scratch. I would be lying if I say I do it all the time. Sometimes, if I'm in a rush or in a hurry, I would use a um, canned beans, but I would wash it thoroughly, like a couple of times, so that all the preservative stuff that was around would be gone. And you will notice that when you put in the can in the food directly versus when you clean and wash it thoroughly and use it, it really makes a huge difference even in the flavor. You will also take off all the preservatives and also excessive salt in it. So if you have to, I would use the canned beans and wash it. Preferably soak it. That's the best way to do it. Naan is super easy. Sometimes I make it in order to add ballast, add a little comfort, moving away from meat, where we associate the savory with comfort. Um, I think that Ms. Noni is an excellent cook and my mouth's watering. So when are you inviting me over? That's wonderful. Again, incorporating, coming from uh, different background and getting introduced to new stuff, it's just absolutely amazing. And congratulations for taking this incredible step towards a better life. So wonderful. Any other questions? It is 6:08 and I had promised that I would do this on time. Last time I went half hour over, and so I think I am spot on. I'll give you one more minute in case somebody has any questions. All right, have a wonderful evening and thank you for joining us today, and hope to see you at some other talk. Take care, bye-bye.